Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH, solutions for every challenge, equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. Across the northern Corn Belt this growing season, exceptionally dry weather clipped crop yields, but it also allowed for a very fast harvest pace. Now that those combines have been put away, thoughts are turning ahead to next year. Joining me this week to discuss it is Tyler Morgan. He's a crop consultant with Nutrien Ag Solutions, and he joins us this week to discuss agronomy for your acres. Tyler, it looks like you folks finally caught a little moisture up there.
Yeah, first time here in a month plus that we've gotten a good rainfall, so it'll be really helpful here for fall tillage. A lot of guys were kind of holding off because of how hard the ground had gotten here with the dry spells, so it'll be nice to get the wheels turning again around here.
So they'll start moving and reflecting, I bet, back on a little bit of this growing season. Tyler, I've heard reports of exceptional yield variability across the state. How does this year's weather shape the advice you give to farmers as they're planning their next season's crop?
We're telling a lot of them to take it with a grain of salt. You know, we're seeing field averages ranging from 80 to 100 bushel corn in the worst scenarios to 240 on some farm operations in this area, and even southeast Minnesota and the garden spots down there. I've heard of some 280 plus field averages. So we're, take baby steps and really analyze what caused those yields to happen, and adjust for next year accordingly.
That analysis is key. Tyler, with new hybrids coming on the market, how much weight should growers give to plot results?
I think looking at just a single plot is really difficult to put too much weight in, but you need to make sure you're compiling a good data set and making it, the bigger the better. It just washes out some of those one-off scenarios where something could have happened with one hybrid being on tile line or in a sprayer rut or something like that. So I think the bigger the data, the better when it comes to the plot results and really analyzing what you're looking at for next year.
That certainly makes a lot of sense. Now, Tyler, given the exceptional weather variability this year in Minnesota, 90% of the state at one point in a drought, what can farmers take away for this next growing season?
I think the biggest thing is to really, have an initial plan, work with your agronomist, and make sure you lay out what your plan is, but be ready to pivot and adapt to the weather. We had record rainfalls this spring that really affected getting pre-emergence on and getting side dressing done. And we had to change plans rapidly to kind of try to keep up and adjust to the weather. And then into this fall with this dry spell, the drought that kicked in, it was same thing, trying to keep up through harvest and keep ahead of the changing weather.
Keeping ahead of everything. That's the name of the game in farming. Tyler, with P&K prices fluctuating this time of year, what are some factors farmers should consider when they're thinking through their fertility?
The biggest thing is to first soil sample and know what you really have going on out there and what your crop really needs. Going in blind to what the field needs is not a good plan to me. So we always try to make sure we get that figured out first. Then the next step is to, again, work with your agronomist, work through your budget and see what your cash flows look like in your situations and try to shape a plan around that. Some guys are waiting until spring here, just cash flow wise with these lower yields, and hopefully softening prices on the fertilizer side of things. So, but if you can get it on in the fall is typically the best, just so we know it's there and ready for spring, because we, again, don't know what the weather is going to give us next spring. So
that's right. It's all about that preparation. Tyler Morgan, crop consultant with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Thanks so much for joining us this week.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
And folks, you can learn more by visiting nutrienagsolutions.com. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. Craig Turner, commodity broker at StoneX and author of the Turner's Take newsletter, joins us this week to discuss the markets. Craig, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be on again.
So harvest practically wrapped up on the corn front here across North America. It still seems as though this crop is a big one. Is that your read?
Yeah, we're still got a big crop. We still have a little bit of harvest pressure in there. Now, exports are coming in, and that's nice to see. We had an export, the latest Thursday export report showed some on the higher end of expectations. Soybean oil was, we're about 25, 26% above pace, so that's been very good. But we need more, right? And it's the time of year also too where the weather in South America has been improving. So at one hand, we're at very good values. But on the other, we need more export here, and the market's kind of been range bound, during the month.
Craig, you say we're at very good values here, but when I take a look at the commodity markets, I mean, soybeans are still broadly $10, corn still north of $4. Does that read as a good value in this economy?
It depends on how you look at it, right? And in my view, we've had 20% inflation since 2018, 2019. So $10 soybeans today is $8.60, soybeans in, 5-6 years ago. $4 corn today is, in my mind, $3.30 corn of 5 or 6 years ago. And if you take a look at inputs and labor and land costs and everything, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. So when we do see corn below $4, to us, that's, a pretty big buy. You start seeing soybeans in the nines, and we start to think, that is also a value point. Can you go lower? Absolutely. And the soybean market, it can probably even make a little bit more of an argument, with the election coming up and, everyone fresh in their mind what happened last time Trump won. And right now he's a little bit of the odds on favorites. The funds are positioning themselves a little bit right now for a Trump win. I don't think we'll have a collapse if we go into a trade war again. A lot of that has been priced in. Plus, China's moved a lot of their exports. Beans, is Brazil first, and corn would be Ukraine first. So a lot of that shifting's already taken place. But the market probably rather be a little bit short than long going to the election. Just for the time being.
Absolutely. I mean, as you think about that election night, 2016, we saw big market moves as that election was going through. Do you anticipate that sort of thing this time, Craig?
Man, that's a great question. I think it's going to be close, and I don't think we'll know Tuesday night. I think we'll most likely know Wednesday or Thursday. It is. I will say this though: when you have these big events, and we've talked about this before, whether it's the pigs, you have the first time a country might crash out, or it's the first time we have the U.S. debt ceiling fight, or the first time we have a shutdown because of COVID, the market will sell first, ask questions later, right? But once you get reiterations of that, everyone knows what the deal is. Like, we know what it looks like. I mean, the U.S., I think it was the National Corn Growers Association and American Soybean Association did studies on what another trade war would look like. So now at least traders know what demand and supply and demand would look like. You can price that in. I think the markets have. So I'm not expecting big wild swings like we have seen in years past, just because, one, Harris is a known quantity. The presidency would probably look a lot like the Biden administration, and we've already had 4 years of a Trump administration. So at least the outcomes are known, however it all goes down.
Absolutely. And of course, you'll be doing a webinar post-election. Is that right, Craig?
Absolutely. You can go to grainsandoilseeds.com. We're having that webinar November 6th. We'll be talking about, marketing in the South American weather markets and how to go about that, but also a little bit of an election special and kind of a real-time assessment of where we think things are going.
All right. Well, don't go anywhere right now, because when we come back, we're going to talk about livestock and what's happening in the wheat market. So leave it here. We'll have more with Craig Turner after this. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. Craig Turner, commodity broker at StoneX and author of the Turner's Take newsletter, joins us this week to discuss the markets. And Craig, let's take a look at the soybean market. You mentioned exports on corn have been climbing. Have we seen any global buyers step into the soybean market in a big way?
So there's two things going on. One, we have seen some buying from China in soybeans, and that's been great. But what's been really interesting is the soybean oil aspect of this. What we've seen here is soybean oil is about 4 to 5 cents cheaper than palm oil. Palm oil is actually hit a 2-year high, and that has to do with Indonesia having or Malaysia having lower production. Plus, over in Asia, they're starting to do B40 on their biodiesel with palm oil. So that has really, one, increased the demand in Southeast Asia. The supply is a little bit less year over year. So now with palm oil trading 4 to 5 cents over soybean oil, whenever you see that, you do tend to see exports pick up. They certainly have. And in that latest export report, I mean, we are now 25% above pace from the, to meet the USDA, which is a big number to see that. So I'm not surprised. Right now, bean oil this week, it's probably been leading the Chicago Board of Trade. And you've seen also strength in palm and also canola oil. The canola, that's the other one of the major or minor oils here. And when you take a look at canola, they're going to have about maybe a 5 or 10% reduction in total production the next time Stats Canada, which is like the equivalent to our USDA, makes their their annual report here. So it's interesting. There's tightness in this vegetable oil market that's going to help out soybeans too.
Now, Craig, you mentioned this veg oil market. We've seen lackluster perceived demand for soybean oil because so much allegedly imported used cooking oil, used tallow is coming in. As you look ahead politically, could any of that change in this next year? And should growers be getting in position for that now, do you think?
Yeah, so there's been talk lately and speculation on what happens if we get a Trump presidency, and if he's going to be tougher on trade, is he going to basically throw a carrot to the U.S. farmer here, or to the United States ag or energy industry overall. I wouldn't be surprised if we heard more about banning or just having increased tariffs on used cooking oil out of China. I haven't heard the president or the administration say anything about that. But if they do get into a trade war and want to give a boost to the American farmer, one of the things that you would look at, because when he was president back 2016, and then when the tariffs started in 2018, renewable biodiesel, that really wasn't, at the forefront like it is now. And I wouldn't be, if it were me and I was looking to kind of cushion the blow of any kind of trade war with China, I probably would, I think a lot of politicians, including Trump, would look at that, would explore that possibility here. And if that does happen, I would think that'd be considerably bullish for soybean oil.
All right, let's take a look at the livestock markets. We've seen live cattle bounce back after a little blip after that McDonald's E. coli scare. Craig, where do you see live cattle headed here as we close out this 2024 year?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are turning over a little bit, technically on the charts. We've seen some of the cash prices come down, especially the cutouts. And we are through some of the moving averages here. Seasonally, we do tend to decrease in price between now and the first week in December before rallying again, on that holiday, on basically the holiday bullishness. And then, finally in January, start to kind of make that secondary top. So for now, a little bit of pressure, but still going to be relatively elevated.
All right, lots to watch in that market. Craig Turner, Turner's Take, StoneX, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead.
Well, Greg's been poring over those maps and charts. And Greg, what are you watching here in the Pacific Northwest over this next week?
A little more typical autumn weather pattern for the Pacific Northwest, and those systems which have been dropping into the central and southern plains and lifting northeastward will generate some good news from a moisture standpoint across the plains and Corn Belt locales. We'll get to that in just a minute, but a respectable late October, early November. Welcome to November. Upper air trough into the northwestern part of the country. Same systems that march to the east. This one as well. Digging a little bit south and southeastward. Nonetheless, some wind and some shower activity. And boy, the next in a series of some of the more significant late autumn moisture outbreaks for parts of the Dakotas and in through Minnesota. Some snow as you'd expect across the peaks of the Bitterroot chain. And last week down to the central Rockies, west of Fort Collins and Denver. A couple of showers in the northern parts of California. We saw that late last week as well. It'll rain all the way down into the Bay Area. So that system continues to drop into the long wave position here in this particular part of the country. Windy, colder weather, some lowering snow levels out through Big Sky country. A little rain snow mix, but no big deal into the Dakotas, and more or less just a more typical early November feel. We're not done with warmth, mind you, relative to November, to come back after a little cool off across the heartland by the way in the days and weeks to come. In any event, here is the southern extension of that Pacific Northwest feature into the Four Corners, lifting out to the north and northeast, and some welcome despite the severe nature. And boy, did that stuff blow up last week out of Nebraska, Kansas, and into Iowa. Once again, maybe the propensity for shower and thunderstorm activity to grow strong, maybe locally severe. Some gusty winds in the desert southwestern areas, some pretty good cotton harvest gains in through California and the desert southwest of late. And here's the last piece of this system expected to lift to the north and northeast. Still some scattered shower activity for parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. But Mike, some of the best set of weather maps and charts from a moisture standpoint for the central and south end of winter wheat we've seen in weeks gone by. Finally, some opportunity for germination and planting out there.
Well, I can tell you several of the guests on this week's show were excited to see that moisture across the Corn Belt last week.
Yep.
Greg, is there another lineup of that for this next week?
Yeah, multiple rounds of shower activity, and it was certainly in the form of a little snow as well from the Arrowhead of Minnesota down to about the Corn Palace on last week's weather system. But here, this big upper trough influx of mild air, not quite the 80-degree air or the fires that broke out, by the way, right around Champaign-Urbana, around Ogden, St. Joe, and south of Danville, just to name a couple. So higher humidity, moisture, and wided expanse of multiple rounds of showers and thunderstorms. The far southwestern end of the Corn Belt could see some severe weather, and into the northern plains, high plains areas, maybe some snowfall potential. And this system is still lollygagging its way into the eastern Corn Belt with some shower activity late in the week, a little more typical, briefly November feel into the western Corn Belt, northern and central plains. A little rain snow mix still back across sections of Big Sky country on southward into Texas. And again, last week, and it takes just really the slightest mechanism to get it going. Severe weather potential, but organized rains, the best we've seen over the central and south end of winter wheat. Some heat for now into Texas. Gulf Coast areas need more moisture as well, and we'll begin to see that. It's actually in the midst of dryness and drought with showers and thunderstorms into the Delta region, cooler air into the southern plains, and some seasonal weather across the southwestern reaches of the country late in the week.
How are things shaping up in the eastern Corn Belt?
Another round or two or three of widespread showers and thunderstorms, first to the western and northern Corn Belt locales, and then spreading to the east. In the meantime, cool high pressure for the northeast of New England. This will be complete coverage, at least an inch or two throughout the Corn Belt locales. Windy, colder weather and a couple of flakes of snow northern Great Lakes region. Yes, some harvest delays, but we're ahead of the game. Moisture gain, and there will be opportunities as well to resume harvest operations to wrap it up mid to late November. Severe weather and good downpours of rain and shower and thunderstorm activity for the Delta and westward. Looky here. Keep an eye on Florida late in the week as the tropics once again turn quite active.
Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Pentair Hypro, a global leader in innovative spray technology for farmers for over 75 years.
This past growing season, many farmers took to adding a biological to their production practices. Joining us this week is Andrew Foof. He worked with the Mosaic Frontier Fields program. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mike, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Tell us a little bit about your operation.
I farm in southwest Iowa near Villisca. I'm all corn and do a lot of strip till and cover crops. So.
All corn. It's important that that crop performs for you.
It sure does. It's been an experience for sure.
So you've been working with the Frontier Fields program from Mosaic. Andrew, tell us a little bit about that this year. What'd you learn?
That's an exciting program to be a part of. It follows 6 farmers across the United States using biologicals and trying to push to a new frontier, basically. So it's been super interesting.
And you had the chance to work with it this year.
Yes.
What did you learn about biologicals through the growing season?
So a year ago, I did my first biological trial with Mosaic, and it was really interesting because I didn't see anything visually, but I could see it in tissue samples and NDVI data. So after the first year, I did expand it this last year, and it was very interesting throughout the season to see the NDVI and just the plant health stay there through the entire season.
When you were looking at it visually, could you see a change in the field, or was it all in the tissue samples?
Not necessarily a year ago when we were so dry, but this year with more moisture, you could see more plant health and plant vigor early in the season, which was very interesting.
We're hearing a lot of farmers talk about biologicals, and this time of the year, many of those decisions for 2025 crop are made. What would you tell folks considering a biological?
I think it's really important to find a company that is very transparent with data and do your research, because everything has a different sleeve that it needs to fit into on your farm that's really addressing a certain concern. Make sure you know what your concerns are and then address them properly. There's a lot of biologicals out there. Just do your research.
Absolutely. What has it been like working with Mosaic?
Oh, it's been actually very, very exciting and interesting. They're so open and honest and willing to work with you and answer any questions that we've had during the trials. and help us learn what to manage our expectations with on what we can expect to see and what maybe you won't see.
Well, it sounds like it's been a very educational year and a half, Andrew, working with these products. What would you tell other farmers that you've learned? What's been helpful for them?
I think it all comes back to find that research, like I said, and we have to be looking at ROI right now, right? So with the BioPath, which is the biological that I'm using with Mosaic Biosciences, they try to get a 3-to-1 ROI on their products, and I believe it has like an 88% win rate in furrow. So for me, with prices where they are, we really got to look at what returns, on investment.
Will you be putting BioPath on all your acres next year?
It will be next year, yes.
And it's been good to work with Mosaic and to scale it up that way. It's worked for you?
Exactly, yes.
If we've got farmers who want to learn more about the Frontier Fields program, Andrew, where would you send them?
They have a website called True Response, and it will basically break down all the trials that they've done, and it's on a map, so you can zoom into your area and find trials that match your soil types in your area and maybe your management style, and you can see if it's really a right fit for you.
Andrew Pfaff, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you very much.
And while biological soil amendments might be one way to condition the soil in a farm field, compost is another one. Our own Lori Boyer has an update on a new composting project out of Colorado.
After watching a large area swine operation dispose of pig carcasses in an inefficient way, Rock Rutledge came up with a business idea to shred them and create compost. He explains how this process works.
So I'm using a rendering shredder now that the pigs go through, and that basically turns them into sausage. I'll get strips of skin coming out and, smaller chunks. And then from that augers into a vertical feed mixer where it mixes in with the corn stalks and wheat straw. And it's a super clean, efficient process. When the dead trucks come in, they dump into wagons, so all the liquids stay in that wagon. When I dump into my other hopper, all the liquids transfer to it, so all the liquids stay off the ground. And when it goes in the mixer, the straw and corn stalks suck everything up. And as you saw, when I clean out the mixer, it's perfectly clean, shiny silver.
Rutledge says that compost needs to have 25 to 30 carbons to every nitrogen. Thus, he mixes wheat straw, corn stalks, and the pigs along with some finished compost, which has the active microbes already in it, to start a new compost pile. The compost needs to stay above 132 degrees for the first few days to kill the bacteria. As the temperatures drop, he moves the piles into new bins, which means it heats up again and continues to heat up as the bacteria works through it. He says if it gets above 400, it can actually combust. And what is the purpose of the windrow?
Just to refine it more, get more oxygen back into the bins. Because I don't have aerated floor or any air going to it, it starts lacking air. It eats up all its oxygen. So when I put it in the windrow, that reactivates it really good and kind of speeds up the process and finishes it out.
Do you have to turn it in the windrow?
Yep, I run a windrow turner through it anywhere, just depending on how much time I have and what the weather's like. I like to run a windrow turner through it 4 or 5 times.
When it comes to technology, Rutledge says that he had a system that was custom built for his pig shredding operation.
That's the technology they use in their shredders in rendering plants, and they just adapted it for what I need.
As for the future, he says he plans to expand into cattle mortality composting. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Lori Boyer.
Thank you, Lori, for that story, and congratulations to Rock on getting that business up and going. The American farmyard has long been a place for entrepreneurship. Later on in the program, we'll talk about how other aspects of agriculture are working to bring success to American farmers. We'll be talking with our friends at BASF. When we return, Max Armstrong will have a story from Ohio with them. And then at the end of the show, we'll get an update on the harvest across Illinois with our friend Rock Kachnig. Leave it here.
Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH, solutions for every challenge, equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. Max Armstrong joins us next with another in our Plan Smart, Grow Smart series from BASF. He's talking about that crop this year across Ohio.
Talk a little bit about this season as far as the bean crop is concerned and your choice of seed and the difference that makes, Evan.
They've been beat up pretty bad, but once we started getting rain, they've come back a lot. We put out I think it's a 34 variety test plot every year for soybeans. Zetavo always has a couple that sort their way to the top, a couple varieties. And Zetavo has always been very good as far as yield goes. We always sit down and have the conversation with our rep about, what diseases we're going to have to play with. And we try to be on the cutting edge of planting early. We plant all of our soybeans first.
How early did you plant this year?
We were in there the first week of April, starting to plant.
Do a little analysis of comparing Zetavo with other soybean varieties that you analyze. What really is the strength for Zetavo that makes you choose it?
Well, I think the service is one thing. We know that we're planting a bean that people are going to stand behind. They're just good genetics. I think their selection process is superior to a lot of other companies. Zetavo has been very good in their variety selection, getting them to our farm and knowing what acre they need to be put on. And we've gotten along really well with them.
So the Zetavo genetics really have stood out for you.
Zetavo genetics have really stood out. Their standards are over and above what other people are doing. Their genetics have always performed on our farm very well. With the test plot we have, we're able to go through different varieties and select what's going to work on different soil types. The service that we get with Zetavo, they work very closely with us to make sure that we get the right bean on the right acre. And also the treatment package that we can get on Zetavo has been superior to the others. Describe for us over the season what your soybean herbicide program looks like here, Evan. We run a residual in our post-pass also, usually in the form of Zidua SC, to keep those small seeded broadleaves and grasses away, so we're not coming back with another Liberty application later in the season. But really, the layered residuals is the most important part of our soybean herbicide program because a weed that doesn't germinate is the easiest one to kill.
Thanks, Evan, for sharing your story with Max. And folks, you can get the full Plan Smart Grow Smart series online at plansmartgrowsmart.com.
Greg Solier is back now with his extended farm weather forecast for the nation.
Well, Greg Solier is back with a look at who's to see that precipitation next week. Greg, where's the hot spot?
Again, we'll start in the plains of the western Corn Belt. Some of those spots seeing some rough weather last week, but at the same time, welcome 1 to 2 inch totals in some of these upper Midwestern, western Corn Belt locales back into the plains. So you'll likely see another inch or two this week in multiple rounds. And if you were on the shorter side of both coverages and amounts into the eastern and southern Corn Belt, a wide swath of 1 to 2 inch rains are expected there. Any other year, this would lead to significant harvest delays, but this year it is widespread drought. It's really who is not in the midst of drought. So drought improvement here over the heartland. Keep an eye on the tropics later this week. Things could get busy. I don't care about the November calendar date. And some welcome moisture for Big Sky country across the mountains of the Pacific Northwest into California. An inch or two at probably higher totals in the mountain locales out there.
As we get into the week of November 11th, Greg, what are you watching temperature-wise?
Nothing out of control. There's no major cold wave intrusions, just a bit of an upper air trough, kind of a cutoff circulation here over parts of the west. So readings a few degrees below average. That summer warmth of 80 to 85 record-setting warmth both daytime and nighttime still lingers in some areas, maybe not quite record-setting, but warm nonetheless here, and temperatures about normal up and down the eastern seaboard. The weather pattern for wet weather is still welcome. Nothing that causes significant or major delays. We'll get some subsoil moisture again continuing on over the eastern Corn Belt. Welcome moisture in some areas of the southeast that had missed out on the tropics, Delta on westward. Others are wet, and the tropics again are still busy even in the mid-November calendar date. Welcome moisture for the Dakotas into the Pacific Northwest. So, Mike, weather behaving really as it ought to be for November. Some moisture recharge underway.
What do you see temperature-wise the week of November 18th? Does it feel fall-like?
It does not really feel all that fall-like. We still have readings that are above average over much of the country and south of the jet as well. So it's a progressive weather pattern. We're back into some of this near record-setting warmth over parts of the heartland, up and down the eastern seaboard. Temperatures about normal. Any cold air intrusion is just not happening. It's a very very fast northern branch of the jet stream, so we keep the cold air at bay, and opportunities as well to resume harvest operations if you were so inclined to be delayed or trying to get caught up over the Corn Belt, back into the plains, drive through California, tropics, maybe a couple of circulations, but the wet weather pattern continues in through Florida, the eastern states, into the northeast and New England as well.
Now, of course, it's a late Thanksgiving this year. Greg,
Yep.
What do you see Thanksgiving week?
Temperature-wise here, we're pretty comfortable. A little dip. Again, things are moving along. The trough is establishing itself for the middle part of the country, so readings a bit below average there. No major travel scenes, just some unsettled weather for the east. A little moisture in the Corn Belt drying out from the Missouri River back westward in through Big Sky country.
Our Farm Progress Roundup is sponsored by Brandt Industries. Lead the field with Brandt's lineup of versatile high-speed discs and achieve better results with every pass. Visit brandt.ca for more. We're taking a look at what's coming from the Farm Progress family of publications, and Gil Gullickson, the editor of Wallace's Farmer, is joining me this week to talk about some innovations making their way to the Corn Belt. Gil, thanks for joining us this week.
You're welcome.
Now, I understand in Iowa, you guys caught some rain this past week for the first time in a while. Did you get much?
Well, in Des Moines, I checked this morning, we got about 1 1/3 inches. The storm kind of seemed to move from central to the eastern part, because I know I checked with Dubuque, and they got about 1.84 inches. Not so much in northwest Iowa, Sioux City. They just got a trace, which is kind of a flip, because last May they were getting hammered in northwestern Iowa, where the rest of the state was getting lesser amounts.
That's so true.
So it's very, very, very welcome precipitation.
Absolutely. And so, of course, we've got farmers wrapping up harvest, taking a look at what they did this year on the ground. And Gil, as we look to next year, some farmers are experimenting with row width. Can you tell us a little bit about Wallace's Farmer's cover story for November?
Well, it's a total flip on conventional corn production. I mean, the standard row spacing is 30 inches, with some farmers going with even narrow rows, 22, 20, even down to 15-inch spacings. This flips the script. It opens rows wide open to 60 and even 90-inch spacings. And I've known Bob Recker from Waterloo, Iowa. He's a retired agricultural engineer who is experimenting with this process. And the thinking is there's always that edge effect in corn where the outer rows can absorb more sunlight, that churns more photosynthesis, which theoretically will transfer into more yield. Now, in his trials, he's gotten to about 95% of yields compared 60-inch rows to 30-inch rows. But there's still a 5-inch gap. There's been other studies that have shown a lot wider yield gap. But what happens is when you have more room between rows, you get what he terms an opportunity space. You have more room to plant cover crops for grazing or soil health. There's even some research he's doing with companion crops, with planting field peas raised for cash within these rows. So if you combine that opportunity space with the wider rows, that can transfer into theoretically more profits for farmers. Now, the key is you have to have, it seems like most of these systems are designed for folks with livestock.
A lot of add value through livestock. This is the November cover issue for Wallace's Farmer. Gil, where should folks go to read it?
They can go to www.wallacesfarmer.com or www.farmprogress.com.
Gil Gullickson, editor, Wallace's Farmer, thanks for joining us this week.
You're welcome.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, where we spotlight another great American farm tractor. He says he's used the tractor for more than a decade. Now it's time for someone else to own it and for some other farmers to benefit from the sale of it. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you this weekend by Mystic Lubricants. Mystic Lubricants are made to make it last. I got a first-hand look the other day at an old Alice Chalmers. Well, it's about 40 years old. It would have been made toward the end of production for Alice Chalmers at 8070 from 1985. Take a look at this tractor. I got to see it up close and in person on the farm of Jason Aycock. He's about 30 miles northeast of Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. Jason is an auctioneer, highly regarded throughout that region, I've come to understand. And his annual consignment auction is next Saturday. It'll be on the 9th. It'll start at 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time. He wants to sell this tractor to benefit farmers so badly hurt by Helene in the mountains of North Carolina, folks he's gotten to know over the years.
It's a lot of good folks up there, and I've got a passion for the farmers up there. A lot of times they're the ones that's left behind, and when after this storm came, it just come across my heart, and I've kind of felt like the guy that built the Field of Dreams. You know, build it and they will come, sell it and they'll come. So that's why we're going to sell this tractor, and whatever it brings, it's 100% of it going to the farmers of Western North Carolina.
Jason Acott says he'll start that auction at about 9 in the morning next Saturday morning, and he plans to sell that 8070 sometime near the noon hour. He hopes to get a good pile of money to send over to help those farmers directly. You've probably seen the truckloads of hay and fencing and lumber, private individuals using their trucks from their farm or their businesses to help those farmers. Jason wants to help him too. His website, jasonacocauctioneering.com. jasonacocauctioneering.com. Mark Stock joins us here every weekend to tell us what's selling at Big Iron Auctions. It's a great lineup.
Well, hello, Max. As we get into November, we have numerous land auctions scheduled throughout the entire month and into December. On Monday, November the 4th at 10 o'clock in the morning, Sullivan Auctioneers will be conducting a 323-acre land auction with the property selling in 2 tracts for the Piper City Trust. On Tuesday, November the 5th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 76 acres will sell in Adams County, Illinois for the James and Stacy Talcott family. On Wednesday, November the 6th, 124 acres will sell in 2 tracts in McLean County, Illinois for the Gilmore family farm. On Thursday, November the 7th, 138 acres will sell in McDonough County, Illinois for Julia McSpirit and Sarah McDonald. Also on November the 7th, 160 acres will sell in Merrick County, Nebraska for Carmen Van Pelt, and 776 acres will sell in Barton and Russell County, Kansas for the Donald Morgenstern Estate. And on Wednesday, November the 6th, 785 items will sell for 90 different sellers, including 21st Century Equipment LLC out of Ogallala, Nebraska. Please check out Sullivan Auctioneers and Big Iron for more details.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Pioneer, developing new generations of seed innovations for new generations of farmers. Pioneer, what's next happens here. We're meeting Eli Julian. He's serving as the treasurer for the Tennessee State FFA this year. And Eli, thanks for talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I understand you grew up surrounded by agriculture there in Tennessee. Was any of it, did it inspire a particular passion in you?
Yes, sir. So when I was young, we showed horses. So I've always been around them. We raised horses. And then when I was in 8th grade, my grandpa, who used to show draft mules, talked to me a little bit about what that would be like. And I decided that that would be my passion. So in 8th grade, we started raising draft mules. We now have 8 that I still get to work with today. And it just really started a passion in me for the mule industry, showing draft mules across the nation. And it's been something that's really played a big part in my life.
Well, that is fantastic. Hopefully you can find time to do it while serving as state treasurer for the Tennessee FFA. Eli, in that role, what are you excited about here over this next year?
I know we're 7 months in now, so we've already had so many great experiences. But I think what I'm most excited for is just to continue meeting new people, meeting FFA members and seeing their backstory, the passion they have for FFA and how it's changed their life really puts into perspective how important FFA is. An organization that's helped shape the lives of so many people, including mine. I think it's so cool to sit in this role and see people that FFA has changed their life, talk to them about a little bit of their backstory and learn more about them.
That is so true, Eli. It is a fantastic feature of the FFA program across the country. We wish you the best of luck in your year of service, and thank you so much for talking with us this week.
Thank you.
Colby Ag Tech is brought to you by PTX, a new brand from AGCO that includes precision ag technologies from Precision Planting and PTX Trimble. Chad Colby, it seems, has been on a mission to climb into every brand new combine cab he can this harvest season. And he's not done yet.
We've done a lot of talk about combines here over the last few weeks on This Week in Agribusiness. And for those of you that use New Holland combines, I couldn't leave out the CR11. I found one running in northern Illinois on the Book Farms. Aaron, talk a little bit about the experience. You've had the combine on your farm for a few days. What's it like?
Yeah, that's a great combine. It combines a lot of corn in a short amount of time. It's about an unlimited amount of speed. You combine at 6-7 mile an hour, 250 bushel corn. You can't get enough trucks, as you can see in the background here. You can't get enough trucks around here to keep the corn away. That's probably the biggest concern of that combine. Your combine is so much corn, it's just keeping that corn away from the combine there.
You know, you and I were talking before the interview here with some of the folks from New Holland. It's kind of interesting now how equipment buying is different.
Yeah, absolutely. As we were talking about before, if we can reduce machines, used to get bigger machines by reducing it, that's the direction we would love to go to.
What other features of the combine were you impressed with?
Yeah, the cleaning capacity, right? So us farmers have been asking for quite a while, can we get bigger cleaning capacity? So you've got other equipment out in the marketplace. You're running planters at 8, 9, 10 mile an hour. Combines, and my brother and I have said this for a while, it's been 3.5 to 4 mile an hour for how many years in a row now, is can we go faster in combines? And that's our main restraint, is to be able to harvest, get harvest done a little quicker, because as you know, the weather changes pretty quickly.
You know, one thing I noticed running these combines, just the grain quality. I mean, you push these combines hard, typically in the past we're throwing grain out the back or we're giving up sample. That's one of the things that's really impressed me, is the quality of the grain sample, don't you think?
The quality is second to none.
For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Thank you, Chad, for that story. And folks, don't go away. Before we go for the week, we'll have a conversation with a pioneer grower from Central Illinois. Leave it here. With harvest progress roaring along in the midsection of the country, we figured it was time to check in to see what's happening between the rows with our friends from Pioneer. Joining us this week is a Pioneer grower, Rock Kachnick from Prophetstown, Illinois. Rock, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Great to be with you, Mike. Wonderful day today.
Before we get into this growing season, Rock, tell us about your operation. How long have you been farming?
This is my 48th crop. Our son-in-law joined us about 12 years ago. We had a great growing season, got things in a timely manner. We were kind of dry at periods, then we got some rain, so we got a good 2-inch rain the 27th of August and really helped with those late beans.
Bean yields, corn yields, Rock, what are early indications looking here as those combines run?
Well, it's pretty much like everyone is finding, something we'll never see again. Corn is just phenomenal. Issues in some fields with white mold. We're learning about that, but we've also seen bean yields that we'll probably never see again, especially on the lighter soils. Really some good yields this year.
Oh, that's outstanding. Rock, let's talk Pioneer. What products did you plant on the operation this year from Pioneer?
That 32Z91 had a great opportunity. Our supplier, Michael Micklig, MJ Seeds, gave us the opportunity to use some of that variety of bean. And we had about 90 acres in a 233-acre field. We had 3 varieties in that field. And that Z bean just stood out. And when we combined it, looked at the yield monitor, we could see that it was the best bean of the 3 in that field for disease, from a disease standpoint, also yield. And the technology and research in these new beans is just phenomenal. The yields we're seeing compared to 20, 25 years ago.
It is incredible, the kind of genetic improvements we're seeing on the farm. Rock, the latest and greatest. Is that something you try to bring into your operation?
Yeah, you know, with the team that we have, with the agronomists we have here from MJ Seed and also our seed dealer, it's just phenomenal. The improvements they're making, drought tolerance, disease tolerance, and it's really a lot of fun. It's so much different than 25 years ago when we may have been satisfied with 150 bushel per acre then, and now even in drought, in stress situations, we're seeing 250 bushel per acre corn. And beans, 60s, 70s, 80s, it's quite a bit different than yesteryear.
It is incredible. Rock, in those Z-Series soybeans, how are they standing in the field here as you get close to harvest?
As good as perfect. Perfect standing, perfect. No down beans whatsoever.
That's outstanding. Do you have any expectations you can share with us as you prepare to roll those combines?
Well, the checkered flag is here real soon, just a few days away. We're really making some good progress. Dry corn's going right straight in the bin. It's something we're not used to. We're not having to wait on the grain dryer and catch the wet bin. So the end is near, and then we'll start the fall fertility program and our strip till program. And we always look forward to next year. It's kind of rewarding when you look over and see that yield monitor. Even where the prices are, it's very rewarding to see that yield monitor when you look over at that.
That makes it worthwhile. Rock Kachnig, Prophetstown, Illinois farmer, thank you so much for talking with us this week.
Thank you, Mike. Great to talk to you again.
Always great to get a look at what's happening between the rows, thanks to our friends at Pioneer for that conversation. And I'm sure a lot of you are like Rock. You've already wrapped up harvest or you're getting very close. If you've got plans this next week to put those combines away, we hope that goes smoothly and safely. And of course, next Tuesday is Election Day, so do be sure to get out there and vote. Thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to join us next time right here for This Week in Agribusiness.
This Week in Agribusiness has been brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by 22 Creative Group and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.